One of the most subtle prisons a person can live in is not built from walls or bars. It is built from words, words spoken by teachers, parents, critics, friends, or even strangers. Over time, those words can settle into our minds and quietly become the voice we listen to the most, our own. And when that happens, something dangerous occurs. We begin to believe that the limits others placed on us are actually our own limits. This is where the illusion of ego begins. Ego is often misunderstood. Many people think ego simply means arrogance or pride. But the deeper psychological meaning of ego is the identity we construct about who we think we are. The problem is that this identity is often built from borrowed opinions. If enough people say you are not talented, not capable, not intelligent, or not creative, those labels can slowly become the story you tell yourself. Yet, the most powerful realization a person can have is this: what limits you most is not what others say about you. It is when you start saying it to yourself. Many people throughout history were told they would never become anything significant. They were told they were too different, too strange, too poor, too uneducated, too old, too young, or simply not good enough. But the individuals who eventually transformed their lives had one thing in common: they refused to adopt those words as their own beliefs. Criticism from others can only reach so far. It becomes truly destructive only when it enters your internal dialogue. As long as the negative voice belongs to someone else, you still have power over it. But the moment it becomes your voice, it begins to shape your reality. The ego then locks you into a fixed identity, and you begin living inside the boundaries that others imagine for you. This is why labels can be so dangerous. People often try to describe you in simple categories. They say you are a teacher, a business person, a student, a parent, a creative, an athlete, or a dreamer. While these labels may be partially true, they can also become limiting if you treat them as complete definitions of who you are. Human beings are not single-dimensional creatures. Every person contains multiple talents, interests, and possibilities waiting to unfold. Yet society often encourages people to stay inside one identity because it is easier to understand. The moment you accept a label as the full description of yourself, you place a period where life intended a comma. Imagine someone describing you by only one role you currently play. Maybe they say, "You're just a student," or "You're only a manager," or "You're simply a writer." Those descriptions may reflect something you do, but they cannot capture everything you are capable of becoming. Your life is not a finished sentence. It is an evolving story. The illusion of ego convinces people that their current identity is permanent, but growth requires constant expansion beyond what feels comfortable or familiar. If you stay confined within the expectations of others, your mind begins to shrink to match those expectations. The human brain thrives on exploration and challenge. When you step outside your normal routine, your body reacts in powerful ways. Your adrenaline increases, your senses sharpen, your mind begins to process new ideas. In those moments of uncertainty, something remarkable happens. You become more alive. Many people today are not suffering from exhaustion. They are suffering from boredom. They follow the same routines every day, repeating the same patterns without ever pushing themselves into new territory. Some people even delay going home after work because they know that once they walk through the door, they will return to the same predictable cycle. But human beings were not designed for endless routine. Unlike animals that rely on physical weapons like claws, teeth, or venom, the greatest weapon humans possess is the mind. Creativity, imagination, and innovation are the tools that allowed humanity to build civilizations, invent technology, and explore the universe. A therapist once explained an interesting concept about the human body. Physically, the body retains the ability to move in many ways that we stop using as we age. Babies naturally stretch, bend, and move their bodies freely. But as people grow older, they repeat fewer types of movement, and the body gradually loses flexibility, not because it cannot move that way anymore, but because it stopped practicing those movements. The same principle applies to the mind. If you stop challenging yourself, your creativity freezes at the level you currently use. If you stop exploring unfamiliar situations, your confidence begins to shrink. If you avoid doing things that scare you, your potential slowly becomes dormant. Growth requires discomfort. Walking into a room where you are not the expert can be intimidating. Entering a space where you do not know the rules can make you feel vulnerable. Trying something new always carries the risk of failure or embarrassment. Yet these moments are precisely where transformation happens. Every time you move beyond your comfort zone, your world becomes larger. You become more adaptable, more interesting, and more capable of navigating diverse situations. Your mind becomes flexible rather than rigid. And most importantly, you begin to see yourself not as a fixed identity, but as a constantly evolving person. This shift is essential for breaking the illusion of ego. The ego tries to convince you that you must protect a certain image of yourself. It tells you to stay where you are respected, where you are comfortable, and where you already know how to succeed. But that protection often comes at the cost of growth. Real development happens when you are willing to risk being a beginner again. Consider the process of creation. Every invention, artwork, business, or innovation began with someone looking at something ordinary and imagining what it could become. A tree is just a tree until someone envisions a table, a chair, or a house inside it. The transformation requires patience, effort, and imagination. The same is true of human potential. Every person possesses raw material, talents, abilities, experiences, and perspectives. But those gifts must be shaped, refined, and developed through effort. The process is rarely easy. It requires commitment, persistence, and sometimes years of work before results appear. Yet the true reward of the process is not only the final outcome, it is the person you become while creating it. When someone takes the time to build something from the resources they have been given, they often discover abilities they never knew they possessed. They realize they are capable of far more than they originally believed. This realization gradually weakens the illusion of ego because it proves that identity is not fixed. You are not limited to who you were yesterday. Another aspect of ego that traps many people is the desire to cling to past versions of themselves. Society often glorifies youth, encouraging people to hold on to earlier stages of life as if those were the only valuable ones. People try to preserve the energy, appearance, or lifestyle they had at 20, believing that aging somehow represents decline. But every stage of life carries its own unique beauty and wisdom. The perspective of someone who has lived for decades cannot be replicated by youth alone. Experience adds depth to understanding. Lessons learned through hardship create resilience and clarity that younger individuals may not yet possess. Instead of resisting the natural transitions of life, growth requires embracing them. Each season introduces new possibilities and new forms of fulfillment. Someone who learns to appreciate these changes begins to see life as a continuous evolution rather than a gradual loss. Ego resists change because it fears losing identity. But in reality, identity is meant to transform. Another illusion created by ego involves labels connected to beliefs or ideologies. People often define themselves entirely by a single perspective: religious, political, philosophical, or professional. Once they adopt that label, they begin trying to behave exactly as they think someone in that category should behave. This rigid thinking can prevent people from exploring ideas outside their assigned identity. For example, someone who identifies strongly with one belief system may assume they should never experience doubt. Meanwhile, someone who identifies as skeptical may believe they should never experience moments of faith or curiosity. You are a collection of possibilities still unfolding. This realization carries an important responsibility. If you possess gifts, talents, or ideas, hiding them out of fear or insecurity prevents those gifts from contributing to the world. Many extraordinary abilities remain unseen because individuals hesitate to share them beyond a small circle of people who already support them. But growth requires expression. If you can write, keep writing until someone reads your words. If you can sing, continue singing until someone listens. If you can create, build, design, teach, or inspire, keep doing it until your work reaches someone who needs it. The world changes because individuals choose to express their gifts rather than conceal them. Ultimately, the illusion of ego dissolves when a person realizes that identity is not something assigned by others. It is something shaped through action, courage, curiosity, and persistence. Other people may speak about who they think you are, but the most important voice is the one inside your own mind. If that voice remains open to growth, possibility, and discovery, then no external criticism can truly imprison you. The only real limitation appears when you accept those limitations as truth. Freedom begins the moment you stop repeating the words that were meant to confine you, because your life was never meant to be defined by a period placed by someone else. It was meant to continue, like a sentence still being written, full of commas, chapters, and possibilities yet to come.